What is up, everybody? Welcome to our junior high interactive family experience. My name is Pastor Ethan, and we are kicking off the Easter weekend today. That is right. Today is Good Friday, and we've got something really special in store for you. The first thing that we're going to do is a virtual Easter egg hunt, and then we're going to be joined by our good friend Mark, and he's going to be unpacking this question. What's so good about Good Friday? So, I'm just going to jump right into our Easter egg hunt. No funny business here. We are just going to jump in and get started. In a moment, I'm going to put up some photos and you have to spot one single Easter egg. Why? Because there's only going to be one in every photo, and they get progressively harder each time. The first person to find the egg gets a point, and the family member who has the most amount of points at the end of the game will be our virtual Easter egg hunt champion. Are you ready? Here we go. We're about to invite Mark onto the screen to tell us all about Good Friday and why it's good. But before we do, we would love to hear from you. We want to stay connected and check in, and so we have something called a connection card where we can do that. The connection card is found right on the main page of the LakePoint app, and so we would love if you would take the next 60 seconds and fill out the card. It's basically like signing our guest book and letting us know you were here. So let's take the next minute and fill out the card together. Thank you so much for completing the connection card and signing our guest book. All right. Well, I'm really excited for today's message. Like I mentioned earlier, Mark is going to be joining us today, and he's going to wrestle through a really, really tough question. What's so good about Good Friday? I mean, 2,000 years ago today, Jesus died a brutal death on a cross for something he didn't even do. Like, what's so good about that? So, without spoiling what Mark is going to share, I'm going to pass things over to him. Check it out.
Hello friends, welcome to our LakePoint Junior High Good Friday special. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mark. You've hosted me once in your homes, once before back in February, and now I am here again to walk with you through this Good Friday. So sit tight and get comfy as we explore Good Friday and what it means for us in the Easter season. The understanding of Good Friday often has a number of different preconceived notions about it. Those are just fancy words for having ideas about the topic already inside your head. But one of the topics that doesn't come out in Good Friday's story is the life that Jesus had to go through on the Friday that he was crucified. It was a brutal and gruesome and dark day for Jesus. It would be something that would make most horror movies seem very tame. It's a story that is filled with betrayal, pain, and hurt for both Jesus and his followers. The story of Good Friday actually begins the night before, let's say Thursday evening. Jesus is having a heart-to-heart with his disciples, explaining he would have to go away for a while, and that his death would be coming very soon. The disciples were upset and confused about what he meant. Jesus had expressed this a few times, but they still didn't know what he meant. However, in that moment, Judas arrives on the scene with a crowd of people and Roman soldiers, all of them carrying swords, clubs, and weapons with the goal to arrest Jesus, even though he was innocent and he'd done nothing wrong. This must have been such a heartbreaking moment for Jesus, even though he knew that Judas was going to betray him all along, to see someone that you cared for and you spent a couple years trying and getting to know and understand them, having them still betray you must have been so painful. So they chained up Jesus right in front of his buddies. Could you imagine if one of your best friends was arrested literally right in front of you? How would that make you feel? I know for me, I'd feel scared and really nervous for them. They took Jesus to what would be considered an ancient day courthouse to face, in their time, an ancient day judge. However, like what can happen in the movies or sometimes in real life, Jesus went to a rigged trial, or a trial that already knew Jesus was innocent but chose to kill him anyways, even though he was, again, fully innocent. Now, if you're a bit squeamish, this is my warning to you to, step away for a moment or to cover your ears. I don't want to give you any images in your head that you may not like. However, I will be explaining the reality of what Jesus had to face before and when he was put on the cross. So they beat Jesus up in a way that by today's standards is completely cruel and unusual punishment, but was something that was actually completely expected at the time and even was looked forward to as an event. Jesus was whipped with a specific tool called the cat of nine tails. It's not the fuzzy animal with 9 tails. It was a whip made out of woven twine, and on the 9 distinct ends of the whip, there was crafted pieces of sharp bone or even large broken seashells attached to it. And when you were whipped with it, you're usually whipped with bare skin, and it would rip and tear your skin and muscle. It would cause intense pain and bleeding. And the Romans would have whipped Jesus with this thing around 40 times. Large gouges of flesh would have been torn from Jesus. His ribs would have been exposed, skin peeling and hanging from his sides and back. And the Romans would have had fun doing this to whoever was sentenced to this fate, believe it or not. And what makes matters even worse would be that almost immediately after his beating, they would have made Jesus take a cross, or a partial amount of the cross, depending on who you ask, which might have weighed between 90 and around 300 pounds, about 600 meters to where he'd eventually be killed. But as scripture says, since Jesus was beaten so severely, he wasn't able to make it the full way. So they pulled in a man named Simon of Cyrene from the crowd to carry the cross the rest of the way. They would have taken him out to a place called Golgotha, that name meaning place of the skull, or simply a place where people go to die. They nailed him to a cross there at around 9 o'clock in the morning and placed a sign over his head claiming he was King of the Jews. Now, the crucifixion process is done by the Romans, and it was just as brutal as their beating process. They would have nailed Jesus to the cross, and while the person who was nailed was laying on the ground, they would have broken both their legs before placing them upright to suffocate slowly. And in the Bible, it says that Jesus was up there for around 6 hours. This would be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This understanding really gives us an idea of what Jesus had to go through, and it really gives us an idea of just how awful the things Jesus went through. It was so bad for 100 years afterwards, no symbol, figure, or even picture of a cross was ever seen. It just reminded people of just how awful Jesus' death really was. Now, all of this seems so horrible. It's gross, squeamish, painful to think about. So that begs the question, then what is so good about Good Friday then? What was wild was that Jesus stayed up there for hours before he took his last breath, and he died. Darkness covered the sky, the whole earth shook. Even within Jerusalem, the holy temple was also shaken. Now, within this temple, there was a certain curtain that separated the rest of the temple from what was called the Holy of Holies. This place was the space where God's presence lived, and you could only go in if you were a priest, and if you were a priest, you had to follow a lot of special rules to make sure that you came to God in a proper way. But in the moment where Jesus died, that special curtain ripped from top to bottom. The Bible tells the dimensions of that curtain. It says it was around 60 feet tall and 9 centimeters thick. That's taller than a telephone pole and about as wide as a hand. As wide as a hand thick. That's crazy. And when Jesus died, that super thick curtain was ripped in half like it was nothing, showing that God loved us so much that he sent his only son to die on the cross so that we wouldn't be separated from him anymore. So what's so good about Good Friday then? Well, we can clearly see that it is the single greatest sacrifice in human history. God is actually shown so bright in this moment. I can imagine the devil was laughing. He thought his plans were unstoppable. There was no longer the sound of praise and worship. It was all crying that Jesus was dead. But in this death, Jesus overcame our sin and our debt. God forgiving us, removing our rebellion, our guilt, and our shame. This was the right thing to do. By dying on the cross, the mistakes of all humans were forgiven by Jesus, the Son of God. And how can one describe such an amazing day like that? Well, that's Good Friday. It's so important to remember the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, so that we are all forgiven for all of the mistakes that we have made in our lives, and how we can live and move forward in the freedom that we are gifted through Jesus' sacrifice that he made for us. We need to take the step to remember that, especially in this Easter season that we are in. To remember the real pain that Jesus went through because he loves us so much. We would really have a special appreciation for the amazing gift that we are given by God day in and day out. We are loved, cared for, and appreciated by God. And if you are feeling alone or like nobody's listening to you, just know that us leaders, your family, your friends, we are always here to talk to you. Furthermore, God would love to talk to you and listen to what you have to say. You're not alone, and the Easter story really proves that.
Guys, I really want you to feel the weight of the events that occurred on Good Friday. I want you to imagine what Jesus' friends and family and his disciples were thinking and feeling. Imagine what Jesus' followers would have thought as they watched the person who was supposed to be the Savior of the world hang and die on a cross before their eyes. Jesus was the person that was supposed to save them from oppression, from the Romans who ruled over them. Jesus was the person that was supposed to be their reigning king, the one that led and protected them. Jesus was the person that was supposed to comfort them, to shelter them, to heal them, to provide for them. And all of that was stripped away right before their eyes. I mean, the hope of the entire world was hanging on a cross, suffocating, and then taking his last breath. And in that moment, all hope died. Maybe you're watching today and you feel hopeless. I mean, we're heading into another provincial lockdown tomorrow, and we've been we've been over a year dealing with COVID-19. And that's reason enough to make anyone lose hope. Maybe you're feeling lost or anxious or worried. Maybe you're scared or upset or angry. Maybe this past year you felt unnoticed or unappreciated, or maybe you felt like no one valued you or saw you as someone who's important. Well, maybe today as we launch into Easter, your Good Friday isn't all that good. In fact, you might even say it's feeling more like a bad Friday. But I love what Mark shared today, because even though Good Friday 2,000 years ago seemed like the worst day ever, it was actually the best day ever, because we know that Jesus didn't stay dead. Jesus rose again, and he provided us with an opportunity to be in a relationship with him. And he made us perfect in the eyes of God, and he took on the punishment for everything we've ever done and ever will do. You see, Good Friday is good because Jesus died so that we could live. We could live eternally. And so maybe your Good Friday isn't all that good. But because of Jesus, he gives us an amazing reason to make it a Good Friday. I hope you have a wonderful day today, friends, and an amazing Easter weekend. We'll see you back here either online or on site for Easter Sunday. Peace.